We're going to start by showing how to edit code within the Shopify editor. If you go up to these three dots, you can click Edit Code. It pulls up a Shopify embedded code editor. If we collapse all these folders, you can see this is the main folder structure for a Shopify theme. What we're going to be building today is a section. And there's a bunch of sections that already exist in this Dawn theme. I think there actually already is banner, but we're going to build our own banner. So what is a section? Let's look at this. You can see it says add section. So, and these are different sections that we can add. It's basically a reusable block that you can add to different pages on your theme. And you can configure it in lots of different ways, which we will go into. So where do we start? First, we're going to go back to our editor, go to sections, and we're going to create a new file. We're just going to call it banner.liquid. And as you can see, it doesn't have anything in it. We're going to create some basic HTML, load that on the page to prove that it works. Let's just give this class a ban for now. And we'll just add a div that just says, welcome. All right. So we have some basic HTML, and then we need to tell Shopify that this is a section and we have to give it some configuration info. So we'll start by adding a liquid tag called schema. And this has a corresponding ending tag of ins. And now inside here, we can put all of our schema info. This is an object, and we're going to give this section a name. We're going to give this name banner. If I hit Control Spacebar, it will give me a list of the things that I can do within this structure. We don't need to use all of these right now. There's only a few that we're going to actually use, but one we're going to use next is tag. This lets us choose what HTML tag this section will be rendered as. In this case, we can just have it be a div. It doesn't need to be anything special. And then last section. And then we'll give it some settings. And settings is an array. In here, it's going to be an array of, actually, we don't really need this right now. We'll come back to this here in a minute. What we do need first is presets. And presets just allowing you to create some options that will load immediately when you add this section onto the page. We don't really need that right now, but we do need to give it a name. Name is banner. All right. Now, this is really the basics of a section. This is all you really need. So if we save this, we go back to our store, reload, then we can click add section, and we can see that our banner is here. If we load it, there it is. All it says is welcome, and it doesn't actually have any settings that we can change, but we're going to fix that. All right, let's add our first actual setting. right? So what do we need in a setting? Well, we need a type, and we're going to choose text. And then we need an ING. I think banner text is a useful name. And this is how we're going to refer to this setting. So we're just giving it an identifier. And then we've got a label, which is how it's going to show up inside the Shopify editor. Text. And then we'll give it a default. This isn't required, but we'll go with welcome. And then, now that that's set up, we're going to reference the setting by doing section, which is the thing we're in, dot settings, dot banner text. It knows that this is the only setting because this is the only one that shows up. Just do banner text. Wonderful. Save. Reload this. And we can add banner and save. And so if we click on this section, the banner section we just created, you can see that this is the label and this is the default text that we set. There's one more thing I want to do here. And if we go back to our code, you can see that we're referencing banner text by jumping into the section and then the settings and then the banner text. Now, this is fine for just this small amount of code. But once you start adding lots of different settings and different logical conditions, it can get a bit messy. So instead of having to dig through all these to find banner text, it'd be much nicer if we could just write banner text. We're going to create a variable called banner text. So let's create a liquid tags and we're going to put it up here so it knows that's what we're doing. And the way that you create a variable within a liquid is you say sign, and we give it our variable name, it could be banner text, and then it equals what we were referencing down here, which is going to be section dot settings dot banner text. All right. Now that we've gotten the basic structure of our banner here, let's style it to actually make it look decent. So we have a banner class here. And what else we need? Well, we need to have a way to close the banner. Let's create button then. Give us class of banner button close. To make this look like a close button, we can use the HTML symbol of times, which is essentially an X. If we save this and then reload up here, this is what it looks like. And we could style it to make it prettier where it doesn't have this background and doesn't quite look like a button. But I actually have an SVG that looks a bit nicer. I'm going to copy that, paste that in here. You can see what that looks like. Probably need to adjust the height a little bit at least. Yeah, so it's a little bit bigger. Still have to take care of the button styles. But we will do that now. In order to style this, we need to add some CSS. The way we do that within Shopify is using these style sheet tags. We could do something like this, where we just put in a style tag. But every time we put a new banner on the page, it would duplicate these styles. Because we want every banner to look the same, we're going to put our styles in these style sheet tags, and Shopify will consolidate them so they don't get duplicated. So let's target our banner class first. Display flex, justify center, line that. All right, now we've got these items aligned in the center, but we need to move this close button to the right. So let's do that. We're going to target this banner, close banner button, banner button, close class inside of the banner. And the first thing we'll do is position absolute. And then we'll say right 0. And this will move it to the right. Position absolute disconnects it from the parent container. So when we save this, reset this, now let's move to the right. We're going to need to give it some right margin to give it a little bit of space here. But at least that gets it roughly where we want. Let's give this banner a little bit of padding. And then margin right of 1 grid. And border none, background. Should get rid of the border styles on the button and then move a bit off. Yeah, there we go. Now we want it to look like a pointer when we hover over it, so it looks like it's clickable. So we'll say cursor, pointer, and then it was aligned a bit high, so we'll just say display flex, and that should center everything. Yeah, now that's even. It's in the center. We actually want this background to be black and then the text to be off-white. So let's change that. Okay. Black over the text is FA, which is off-white. And then we'll get the same color to our button. Let's see how this looks. Okay, looks pretty nice. What else do we need? Let's add a couple of animation classes that we'll use here in a little bit. A little bit of transition. All 5 second out. And then also painter class where 0 as 0 and using these two in conjunction, we'll be able to add this class, to hide it and remove this class. And when it appears back on the page, it'll have a nice smooth animation to it. So let's simulate this. Now that we have our banner hidden class, add it to our banner. And I'm going to save this. When I reload, yeah, banner's still here, but it's hidden. And now, if we look on the page, this is our section. You can see it's got this banner hidden class on it, just like we said. And we're gonna simulate adding and removing this banner hidden class, which we'll do later with some JavaScript. Document dot query selector. We'll do banner. All right, so that targets the banner. Class list dot remove banner hidden. That's what it looks like. And then if we were to add this class back onto it, let's add hidden. All right, it's a nice little effect there. In the last video, we were styling the banner to match the website and make it look nice. And we added this banner hidden class, which don't really need right now. So let's go ahead and remove that. Great. So the next thing we need to do is give users the ability to click this X icon and close the banner and have that choice be saved somewhere on the web page. So when they revisit the site, it doesn't keep showing up over and over and over again. So how do we do this? Well, we need to add some JavaScript that will connect to this button. And when the user clicks it, it will identify this banner and then save the choice to save the banner to local storage. So in order to do that, we're going to go to our code. We're going to create a new file called banner.js. Banner.js. Now this is going to be a JavaScript file that we're going to add to our theme. So we'll say document.event listener DOM content. And this is a browser event that will run whenever all the HTML elements have been fully loaded onto the page. Because we need to make sure all the elements are loaded onto the page so that we can search for the element that we care about. In this case, it's the banner. So we're going to listen for this event. And then when this event fires, we're going to run function. So in order to connect this banner JavaScript file to our theme, we just need to import it. So we'll go to our layout and to the theme.liquid file. And we're going to add, so where are we? We are in the head. You have like the head, and then you have the body is like the two main parts within HTML. In the head, we're going to go down to where a number of other scripts are being imported. And we're just going to do the same thing, but add our script. So copy the one above it, and then change this to banner.js. Then we can save the theme.liquid file. Now we'll reload the theme editor here. And there we go. Now let's go ahead and change this actually. We should probably have, let's say banner.js file. That's more useful. Now that our banner.js file is running, what do we want to do here? We want to add an event listener to the close button right here. So when someone clicks it, it'll actually close the banner. We want a couple of things here. We essentially want to write a function called add event listeners, because maybe there's multiple banners. Event listeners to banner close buttons. Kind of a long function name, but I think it's a very useful function name. And then we can actually write our function. We can just copy and paste this. And then what do we want to do? So in here, we want to find all the banners on the page. Then for each banner, add an event listener. When this event listener here's a clicked event on the close button, it runs function to close, aka hide the banner. All right, so let's do step one. So step one is find all the banners on the page. So we'll say const. Actually, we don't really care about the banners on the page. We just care about the close buttons. We find all the, let's say, banner buttons page. Because in here, in our banner template, we have a class for the banner close button. Let's just search for that. So we can say const close buttons equals document query call, and it's called banner. What is it? Banner button close. Just copy. And let's just make sure that that's working. So let's log close this. All right, I found it. So now that we have our close buttons, we can just leave it there for now. We'll say close buttons dot for each close, and then close button dot add event listener, and the type of event we will want to listen to is click event. So when this click event happens, we're going to run a function. This add event listener function accepts the type of event you want to listen to, and then a function to run when that event happens. The add event listener function, it'll natively pass an event object that you can listen to. You know, if we wanted to look at that, we could console.log the event here and see what that actually looks like. It has a bunch of information about the element that triggered it and other things, but we don't actually need it here. So I'm going to change this to just an anonymous function that does not have any arguments. Now that we did this part, say for each banner add event listener, that's what we're doing. And then when an event listener hears a click event on the close button, we want to run a function that says close banner. But we need to figure out how to find the banner to close. So how can we identify the banner that we want to close? Well, let's go back to banner.liquid file. So what we really want is to be able to identify this particular banner. And it would be great if we had a banner ID, kind of like how we have banner text. Let's create that. Assign banner ID equals, well, what can we do here? So within a section, we're able to access properties on this section. And one of the things that we can access is an ID. Let's just see what an ID looks like. Let's just add the banner ID here. Banner ID, so you can see what it looks like. Save this, reload. Yeah, this is a banner ID right here. Well, sorry, this is the section ID. So what we can do is have this just be the banner ID. But we don't want to leave this here, obviously. It would look terrible. What we can do is add this as the ID of the banner. So the ID equals banner ID. And because we are wanting to grab this particular button, we can't add an ID of the same name, but what we can do is add a data attribute. So we can say data banner ID equals banner ID. And then when we go back to our JavaScript, we have a way to get this banner. So const banner ID going to be close button dot get attribute data banner ID. It's just a console.log ID. Make sure we are binding to this click event correctly. Save that. Clear this. Reload. And now if we click this, it should print out the banner ID. Beautiful. That's great. Okay. So what we really want to do here is close the banner. So we'll write the function name that we want, and then we'll create the function to actually do the work. Close banner. And which banner do we want to close? We want to close one of the ID that we just got. Now we actually have to write the function. This function will be function loads banner. And we'll take the banner ID. And then we have to get the banner that we want. We want to find this element and we want to add a banner hidden class to it, like this. So we need to grab this ID, like the top level div. So we'll say const banner equals document.get element by ID. And then we just do the banner. And then if for some reason can't find the banner, then we will just return. Otherwise, we'll say banner dot last list dot add and a hidden class. Save this. But yeah, we forgot to move this up to here. All right, so now if we click this button, it should hide the banner. Beautiful. All right, so we have our banner and we've written our code to attach our event listeners to the close button, and we can click the close button and it closes the banner. This is great, except if we reload the page, the banner just comes right back. So we want to store this choice somewhere in the browser. Where can we do that? If we look in our developer tools, go down to storage, I'm using Firefox. I think in Chrome it's under application, but here in Firefox, if you click storage, you can see these different places to store data. We're going to use local storage, which is a type of key value store. And we're going to write some code that's going to create a key that's going to be essentially the banner ID. And then we're going to store the choice to save it, which is going to be true. That'll make more sense in a minute. All right, let's go back to our code. And when we close the banner, we want to not only add this banner hidden class, but we also want to save some data to local storage. So we'll say local storage set item. And we're going to use a little bit of string interpolation here. Say banner ID as hidden true. Save this. We can just see what this actually looks like in the browser. Reload here. You can see if we click local storage and then click our current URL. If we click the close button, it now saves the key and is the value. So this is how we identify that this particular section, or in this case, banner, is hidden. Now we have the choice saved, but now we have to check if we chose to hide it before we show it. So let's do that. So up here we have first function, which adds the event listeners to the banner close buttons. Then we're going to write another function that's going to be show banners if not hidden. Clean this up a little bit. Need that anymore. Function banners if not. Yeah. So again, we have to find the banners. Const banners document query select all. Use the banner class and then banners for each. All right. So now that we found all the banners, we need to loop through all the banners and see if it has been hidden. And so we need to figure out how to find, we basically need to access this key right here. And then once we pull that data, it'll tell us whether the value is true or not. So we'll say is hidden local storage get item, and this would essentially be banner.id hidden, but let's make this a little bit plainer. Const local storage banner equals, copy this, and then storage banner ID, just to make it a bit more clear what we're doing. And then, if it's not hidden, if not is hidden, banner dot class list dot banner hidden class. Now, we forgot one key piece here, and that's we have to add this banner hidden class to the div so that its default state is hidden. Otherwise, the banner would show up, and then when the code runs and it found that someone had chose to hide the banner, then it would all of a sudden disappear. That's a bad user experience. So we're going to assume that the banner is hidden, and then it's going to check local storage. And as long as someone hasn't already hidden it, then it'll display the banner. So let's take a look at that. All right. This is great because it found our choice to hide this particular banner. Now, if we go in here and delete this, beautiful. There we go. So now we have a working banner, and it closes, stays closed, storage, this key, delete, comes back. Okay, great. So now we get to the point of the whole video, and that is to make it dynamic. So what's an example of this? Here's this hoods. So this right here, this text is coming from these URL parameters. And I believe it's right here. So how can we do this in our banner? Well, it's fairly easy. Let's go back to our code and go to the JavaScript. And when we're deciding whether to show the banners or not, we need to write a function that's going to look for data in the URL. So this is essentially the key and the value of the URL parameters. We need to check and see if there's a key that we decide on, and if there's value, and if so, then we'll override the existing content, the default welcome message. So let's just write the code that we wish we had. So we'd say to dynamic banner text get horseshoe second dynamic banner text if needed. And then in here, we need to do a couple things. We need to plug in your URL and see if it has a special parameter that contains the message we want to display. And if it does, it contains the message override the existing banner. So we have to decide what parameter we want to use. I don't know, say search param d equals, we'll just say banner message. Feels right. Let's just do a quick little tutorial here. So if we inspect this page, we say const, actually, we don't even do that. We can look at the URL programmatically. So we can say URL document dot patient href And this gives us programmatic representation of everything that's up here. And, it's got some useful stuff, the host, the origin, the protocol, and it gives us the raw search query, but it also gives us all the different entries in the URL search param. So that's what we're going to use. We're essentially going to say, so I don't know what we're going to say yet, but we're going to use this to get our message out of the URL. We're going to use this key. So this will be our key and this is the value. So this will be banner message, and then we'll extract our message out of it right here. So we'll say URL equals new URL document.href, which is what we did just a second ago. And then we'll get search params. Just type URL dot search params. All right, so now that we have our search params, let's actually play with this in the browser. So let me assign a variable to this. So I'll do the same thing. I say const URL equals new URL root version. All right. So now this is the URL object that's printed above, and I can do dot search params, and that gives me this object to work with. Now, if what is it? So this will show me the documentation of this URL search params object. And it has some methods on it that we can use. The ones that are important to us are going to be this one, where we can check to see if it has a certain key. And then this one, which we can use the key to get the value, out of it. So I can say URL.search params dot has, what's the key? Or you have to do it like this. Or true. Yeah, because it has it right here. If I were to put in random stuff here, it would say false. Cool. And then if I wanted to say get the value here, I do get, and then it prints a string. So these are the two that we're going to use here. These two functions, has and get. So if we go back to our code, we can say if search params has search param key, which is banner message right here, then we want to override the existing banner message. So let's break this up into two parts. So if it contains a message, we can say const URL message equals search params dot get search param key. And then if the URL message equals an empty string, then we just want to return because that's not useful at all. Then down here, we'll know that it has a message, and then we can override our existing banner text with this new message. Const banner text post document get element ID, except we need to figure out how to do this. But anyway, once we get it, we'll say banner text dot error text equal URL message, and that will set the new text. All right, so how do we figure out how to get this banner text? So if we go back to our liquid file, this is the node that we care about. but it doesn't have an ID on it. So let's give it an ID. ID equals, let's do banner ID dash text. And then in here, we can string interpolation again and say banner.id dash text. But we don't have a banner in this context, but we do have banner here. So we can pass this in as a variable. So we can say banner, and then we can pass banner in here. All right. So that should do it. Let's save this and give it a try. Save. And we're using banner message. So let's reload this page, and then we'll add some query params. Banner message equals testing. Beautiful. I love that. All right. That is great news. Now we can clean up our code a bit here by extracting this out into a separate function. How would I do this? So we have set dynamic banner text if needed, but we're not just setting the text, we're also getting the message out of the URL and then setting the message. So how can we separate these two? Let's write a separate function called, actually, what would we want to do? So this is really all about getting the message out of the URL params. What we would really want is something like, maybe we want to get this banner node. I'll just copy this. And then once dynamic text equals get dynamic text URL params. And then get dynamic, if no dynamic text, we return. Otherwise, banner text node actually would be essentially this right here. But instead of URL message, it would be dynamic text. Okay, so then this really just needs to return the URL message. Let's write this function. Copy this. And so this is where we'll get our search param key. Let's just copy this into here. And we don't need to set the actual banner node. So all of that is done above. But in here, we can just return the URL message. And then if it doesn't have, we can just return null. Right, so get dynamic text from URL params. You got the param key. We search for the value, and as long as it has something in it, then we return it. And then that gets returned into here. And if there's nothing there, we just abandon the function. Otherwise, we set the inner text to the new dynamic text. I think that covers it. Let's take a look. Let's just change this to something else. Welcome, partner. Beautiful. All right. I feel like that's a pretty good implementation. All right. I'd like to go through our current code and clean it up a little bit. It has gotten a little bit messy. So I think we can safely remove some of these comments now. Yeah, let's see. All right. This looks good here. And I don't think we need that. Like that looks good. this. We could do this if we wanted to. If we wanted to take search params and just do search params and then rename this to search params. Get rid of this. And for returning null here, actually, we don't really need to return null here. And let's see. Now down here, get rid of this comment, get rid of this console log. This is self-explanatory. Yeah, can we get rid of these? And this. That looks a lot cleaner. Now, this close banner function is currently inside this add event listeners to banner close buttons function. Now, we can move it out. I mean, it works fine how it is, but we can move it outside such that if we wanted to, I don't know, have the banner close based on a timer or something like that, then it wouldn't work if this function was embedded inside of or scoped underneath this function. So we'll go ahead and pull it out. All right. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. So what else might we want to do with our banner? So right now we only have banner text. I would imagine that at some point you might want to change the color of the banner, or maybe we want to have multiple banners on the page, one that's connected to this, and then another one that has a discount code that shows fall 20 or something like that. We would have to configure what these URL parameters would be inside of the banner section. And then we could have multiple banners and they would both pull from different URL params or different colors. I will show you a quick example of both of these. Okay, let's add a configurable color. Actually, two colors. We're going to have a color for the background, a color for the text and the icon. So in our code, start by going down to our settings and we'll add another setting block. And this first one will be for our background color. So we'll say type and color here. The ID is going to be background color, and label going to be background color. The default of black. This is the hex code for black. 6 zeros. Okay. So now that we have this, we want to add a style tag. And just to reiterate, these styles here will apply to every single banner. But if we want styles to apply to this particular banner, then we can just throw in a style tag, style, and essentially just override these default styles. So these override styles, it's going to be very similar, but instead of targeting this banner class, we're actually just going to target the ID of this particular div, which is the same node, but each individual section will have a different ID. So we'll be able to target each banner separately. What that actually looks like is like we would normally target an element in CSS like this, banner or something like that. But here we're going to use our liquid tags and say banner ID, because that's essentially the section ID for this particular banner. And then we'll just write a normal CSS. This will be a background. And then we'll reference the new setting that we created. So sections, status, background color. Save this. All right, so now we can change this to something random and save. And there we go. Let's add another banner, actually. Let's add one here. Banner. You can see this is using the default styles, and this is using the newly updated ones. All right. So let's go back and add one more CSS style to target the text and the close button. Down here. It's actually going to be very similar to this. We'll just copy this over. Text color. This will text color. Text color. And that's white. Let's add this up here before we save. Color will be section left settings. Color. And to target the SVG icon. And then we'll do the same banner. There's class. Color. Actually, we're going to do this. Happy. Let's save that. Reload, and now we can change this. It's unwacky. That it's terrible, but it works. All right. So let's go back and do one more thing here. Let's give these variables background color section settings to color color in section and then we can just reference background color and text color here. Beautiful. All right, let's add our final feature here, which is going to be a custom query param. So what does that mean again? That means up here, we are using banner message to identify what we want to display inside the banner. And where is that configured? That is currently, it's in our JavaScript, and it's just hard coded in here. So we need a way to have that be set inside the settings. So let's create that. So we'll say type text ID. That would be, what do we want to call this? Maybe a custom query param. Query param ID. Let's do that. Label. The custom D, and the default is going to be what we had in code, which is banner message. All right. Save that. All right. So now we have a place where we can configure the query param ID, but now we have to utilize it. So how do we do that? Well, let's go back to our JavaScript. And we need to be able to pull this from the settings. But here in the JavaScript, we don't directly have access to this section. But where this function is called, which is right here, we do have access to the banner. And we can attach data to the banner like we did before with this data banner ID. So let's do that. Banner is here. Get dynamic text. Yeah, so we can pass in banner, which means banner is available here. And then instead of this hard-coded value, we can do banner dot get attribute. But now we have to set the attribute on the banner. So let's go back to banner liquid file. And up here, we can do something similar like we did here. This, paste this here. It's not going to be banner ID. It's going to be data custom query ram d. And this is going to section settings say custom query param ID. But we don't want to do this. We want to create a variable for it. So we'll say time. We'll just say query param and then query. Then let's see this. Do we need to do anything else? Our JavaScript. Oh, right. We call it data custom query parameters. Do this. And paste that there. So now we are dynamically getting the custom query param from this particular banner. All right, let's save this. So now we should be able to change this to, let's call it hardware message. Save this. We reload this. Now they're different. So this is using the default query param, but then in this top one, I could add a separate query param for message, and then it could be full 20. Just can put a plus in here for spaces. Beautiful. All right. And of course, our other banner right here is just using default banner message. What else could we do here? Let's fix this. Line. Well, I think this needs to be on a separate line. And probably this, because we're not going to be editing these values. I need to see all the time. Tighten component a bit. I think that looks pretty good. All right. I hope this gives you a good overview of what's possible when building a section. There's a lot more I can go into detail about, but these are really the basics and how I think about designing a component, or in this case, a section, to be editable in all the different ways that we typically need them to be. But I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know.